Destiny, real name Steven, is one of the largest progressive political commentators online today. But he actually has a large background in music. He actually majored in music in college and studied saxophone, and I find his background very interesting and something that's worth looking at. So today I'm going to review some of his video of his playing, and then I found like a 7-year-old video of his thought process for why he majored in music and how he ended up not doing it anymore, which I think is very useful for a lot of you who are generally high school age like me. So first we're going to watch this cover of Ocarina of Time, which is like a video game. Steven is playing saxophone. I think his friend is playing piano. I believe this was recorded in the summer of his senior year of high school. So that's where I am right now, which is pretty cool. So we're just going to review how he plays and see how it is. I think his tone is especially good for high school. I didn't get into this too much. I think in the more like philosophy video, he explains that he started playing saxophone in freshman year, which I find really impressive that he can play like this now. There's a lot of vibrato, you know, clarinet doesn't really use vibrato, but I can appreciate it. I can appreciate the saxophone on vibrato. Let's keep going. You can also really tell that he has practiced his long tones because you can hear the tone of his sound is very just solid. It doesn't really wave too much, well, besides the vibrato, and it's very convincing. It's like a 2-minute piece, just a simple rhythm, but he's playing so much on top of it, it's not so good. I wonder if he wrote this himself. And I believe this whole thing was recorded just in private. It wasn't for any talent show, which I find even cooler, just to have a recording of this online. I mean, I'm here watching it probably maybe like 15 years after the fact. It just goes to show, just having recordings of stuff is really awesome. I'm sure Steven probably watches this every once in a while, because this is great. I mean, I really enjoy this, and I'm not even emotionally too invested in it. I'm not sure if it's true on saxophone, but at least on clarinet, you can fairly easily niente, like go to nothing. And I'm noticing Steven doesn't really do that, but I'm also not sure if it's way harder on sax. So I won't beat him for it, but I think, I mean, if I'm looking for imperfections, then that's something that could be improved on. For a high schooler, that's really great. Obviously, it's not perfect, and I'm not going to act like I am at all, but I think if this was my recording, even despite like just only a few imperfections, I'd be very proud of that. So this is another video by Steven. This was made in October of 2016, and it's about how he sort of got into music. Basically, the series he did was people could send in questions, and then he'd answer them. And a few people asked about his time in music, and he sort of just went full scale, his full story. So I'm just gonna be watching this and giving my comments on sort of what he says, because I find his philosophy, like I said at the beginning, I find it very interesting. I don't really know anybody in real life who thinks this way, and I think that makes the viewpoint a lot more worthwhile and a lot more valuable to certainly me, and hopefully it's interesting to some of you.
Now, the third question comes from Toastmaster7727. Hey, Destiny, I was wondering if you go into more detail about your time spent studying music in college. What were you trying to do with a music degree? Were you trying to play at live events such as jazz ensembles, concert hall performances, etc.? Also, be honest, how good of a musician were you? Hey, Destiny, I was wondering if you could get into more details about time spent studying music in college. So, the reason why I did music, this is, I guess, a fucking life story. So, in growing up, so how far back do we go? I was a very independent person growing up. My parents ran a daycare at their house until I was like 13 or 14. So they, 12 to 14 kids at the house, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I was on my own kind of a lot to do my...
Okay, first off, that's wild. Being in a house with like 14 kids?
My own thing, to play my own games, to watch my own TV shows, and I didn't have too much interaction with parents, except kind of at mealtime sometimes. A lot of the other daycare kids were there as well, and that trend kind of continued growing up. I think when I was like 14 or 15, my mom moved to Florida to take care of her mom, who was dying, and then I think when I was 16, my dad moved as well. So I lived with my grandma in an apartment for a little while, and then I moved out with my girlfriend sometime during high school, and then kind of on that, right? In the process of being in high school, I didn't really have, like, my parents, because they were busy working, or my mom was with her mom, didn't really come to my concerts or doing, blah, 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 blah. So as a result of all of that, this sounds like a sad draw of my life story, but it's really not. I'm really, really happy at the way that turned out, because it made me a very independent person.
That's very interesting to say. I feel like a lot of people do this too, where they have a lot of negative things happen to them, and they take it very bad. They blame it for all of their problems, and like, oh, if only this thing didn't happen. But this sort of mindset Steven's showing here, looking at like pretty negative life events, not being very close to your parents, both of them moving away, then you have to go live with your grandma when you're only like 15, 16. This whole idea of taking blows and trying to see the good in them, even when on the surface they seem just abhorrently terrible, is something that I think a lot of successful people do. I think a lot of the times, if you just take something that's really bad, like maybe on a much smaller scale, maybe get rejected from some band group you wanted to get in, maybe you want to get into, like, your school was one ensemble and you got rejected, there's a way of being like, oh, I should quit, this is like very bad. Or you can take it as like, oh, this means I can go hang out with other people who are in the lower band who are also trying to get into that top band. So maybe you're surrounded by people who want to succeed more, right? There's a lot of ways you can spin these things that seem bad on the surface and see a positive in them and keep your head up high and just keep going.
So because I was a very independent person, I had a tendency to look for things that I personally derived pleasure from, things that were fun for me, and not because, my parents told me to do it, or not because, it was cool or whatever. So video games became a huge thing for me, and music was a huge thing for me. I fucking love music. In the beginning, it was all like video game related music. All the Nobuo Uematsu, the Final Fantasy tracks, the Yoko Shimomura, whatever the fuck the chick is that did the Parasite Eve music, and then the Kingdom Hearts music. A lot of the Japanese music memer dudes, and then eventually from that, the first band I think that I found that I liked the sound of, like all of their songs, was Linkin Park, just because I liked the sound of the group. Park. And then eventually I met a memer on the internet, some chick who played StarCraft, the Diplomacy UMS, called Isolation Girl, who turned me on to a bunch of prog rock, and then I started to really get into the music.
A lot of my friends get into music through video games. I think especially nowadays, video games are very common, and a lot of video games have very good music, like maybe Celeste, even like Super Mario Odyssey had really great music, and that's a very big game. Every Pokemon game, every Legend of Zelda game, all the Nintendo games really have great music. And I'd say personally, I think a large part of getting into clarinet was also trying to play some of those pieces, because I just really enjoyed them, and I think that's true for a lot of my friends as well. I'm not so sure about the anime music, because I think a lot of people get into anime maybe when they're like 13 to 15, if they're going to get super into that. So I feel like it's sort of late, unless you're starting in high school, to really get into that sort of thing.
Aside from that, I was also big into like all the music from the animes as well. The Yoko Kanno chick from Cowboy Bebop was a big inspiration for I wanted to play saxophone going into high school. I'd never played an instrument, but then when I got to high school my freshman year, I decided I wanted to play saxophone because I liked the song Goodnight Julia.
Good song.
Anyway, that was a ton of fucking backstory. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I really, really, really enjoyed music. I loved music. The memories that I have playing in that church with my friend Alex, the improving back and forth, was like some of the highlights of my life. It's just a very deeply personal, awesome thing to me. I just really, really, really enjoy it. And so being able to go to an institution of higher learning and study that and know more about it, it's like a no-brainer for me, right? I had a stable job at the time at a casino, and I was making really good money for my age, like $20 an hour, insanely good money for my age. I didn't really have any bills. I didn't have a kid at the time. I had an apartment with a girlfriend. So yeah, going to college for music seemed like a no-brainer, right? I guess given the backstory, right, it seems rational.
Yeah, it's really crazy how this changes in not even that many years, right? This was recorded in 2016. He probably went to college in, I'm not sure, I think like 2010s, like 2000s at worst. This might be a Bay Area thing. All my friends who went into music are going to like very insane private schools. They're paying like 50, 60K a year for their performance degree in whatever instrument they play. And personally, I looked at that, and I mean, this is why I don't think I ended up majoring in music, because I saw that the pinnacle was these people majoring in music at these like insane schools that cost like tens of thousands of dollars every year, which I think they costed less back when Steven was majoring in music. But yeah, I guess this is a broader point about how like college today is more of a certificate program than it is a place for higher learning, which is which is actually very depressing, because I think a lot of the arts have much less people. I think there's some stat like 16% of the majors at I think Stanford are computer science majors, which is I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are really into it, but there's certainly a lot of those people who are mainly there for the money, which there's nothing to bash them about. We all have to live, but I find it very sad that, I mean, it still is partially, but is designed to be a place to get the peak academics and become somebody who's very intelligent at a subject, has become more of a place to just get a degree that you can put on a job application so that you can have a trusty, reliable job.
Rational, because I had the job at the casino. I figured I would get my music degree, I would learn to play, I'd be awesome at playing, but I would always have my casino job as kind of a safety net to fall back on. Or not even, like that would be like my main source of income, and I would do music as a hobby, and if I could turn it into a job, the more the merrier. But I didn't necessarily ever plan on that happening, because I realized it's incredibly unlikely for that to happen.
Yeah, I think this is something that also a lot of people do when they're thinking about the calculus of should I major in music. They look at how hard it is to actually win one of these jobs. Like San Francisco Symphony, I know just held a Clarinet 2 position just for Clarinet 2, and there are like 200 people, and the winner is stupid good. Like I couldn't imagine any of my friends beating her in that audition. And there's tons of those people who are just taking all these auditions, and just trying to win one of them seems incredibly difficult. And even if you do win, the salary is not too insane. Like New York Philharmonic, which is one of the best symphonies. I think the bass clarinet player is paid $120,000 a year last time I checked, and that's like you're the best guy at bass clarinet. And you have to imagine the people who win that sort of position. They went through undergrad, they went through graduate school, maybe they went even above that, maybe they got a PhD, right? So maybe their debt is $300,000, $400,000, and making $120,000 a year in New York is not. You'll have to save a lot just to play, right? So a lot of these jobs for musicians are really just not accessible to the common Joe studying music at their state university.
What were you trying to do with the music degrees? I think I kind of got that. Were you trying to play at live events? So unfortunately, the world of academia in music is pretty snotty, because I went into college like really loving music, and I think a lot of people that go to college for music kind of go there because they like the club and they like the people and all that shit, and I just wanted to go because I really fucking love music, and it's kind of hard to find those people, I feel.
This is one of the main reasons I picked to make a video on this, because this is actually something I hadn't really thought of before, but I find it very true. I think a lot of music or band class in general in high school or even middle school is all about the social aspect of just being around people, and it sort of loses a lot of the people who are really into music. I think back to my high school marching band, and not to knock it too bad, but I think most people were there for the social aspect. I think I was too, and I don't think we were really trying to make anything super great or just make great music because we really liked music. I think we were there because we were all friends and we wanted to hang out. And I think that's why people stayed for like 4 years. I think that's why most of the seniors were there. I think there's one senior out of like 15 of us who's actually going on to major in music. And yeah, I think a lot of these school programs, and it sounds like even at the college level, if you're just really into music, you really love it, and you just really want to study it no matter what, because you just really love the art, I think those people can really be lost, which sounds backwards because you'd think college is a place for higher learning, but I think a lot of the people, I think this may be just a music issue, are certainly there mainly for the social aspect and hanging out with friends, rather than really being moved and really being into the music. And I think, of course, this isn't a finite scale. I think you're not going to be all in on loving music and just hanging out with people. I think there's like on a 10 scale, I'd probably be on social. Right now, I'd probably be at like a 7 and then like a 3 on the loving of music. And if I really think about that, like that's probably not a good place I want to be. I'd probably want to be like on loving music, I want to be like an 8 or 9. And then probably on the social aspect, I would want to be at a 2 or 3. Because if I'm really into music and I really love playing and I'm able to play stuff that's really moving, like that video we just watched, that was like so moving, that was so great. If I'm able to do that, I think that is much more fulfilling than whatever hangout you did at In-N-Out last night.
That like were there because I really, really, really love the music, you know? There were people there that definitely did it. Maybe I didn't socialize enough. My social life in college was fucking non-existent because the to graduate with a music degree, the credit hours were fucked. You'd have 1 credit hour classes that required 4.5 hours of class time, and then on top of that, I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week at my casino job on a night shift. So like everything was fucked in terms of my college life. What we were trying to do, we were trying to play at live events, jazz. Yeah, I was never really a big fan of jazz, which kind of sucks because I played saxophone, huh? Some of the big band music was pretty cool, but in terms of like jazz, like real hardcore jazz memers, like everything like past like middle Coltrane, like I totally don't understand. Like any bebop shit, any, I don't know, and anything that came out of like past the, past like the more basic jazz stuff, like I can listen to like Kind of Blue, like that album, you know, like songs like So What or whatever, like okay, yeah, I can hear these and these are cool or whatever. But when you get back into like some of the deeper jazz shit, like I'm totally fucking lost. Like I don't understand anything that's going on. Although there are like modern jazz dudes, I guess like Pat Metheny or whatever, and I listen to their shit. I like their shit a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't, in terms of like, there was never any music that I played at school that I was super excited about. Playing in the jazz ensembles, I guess, were kind of fun, even if it was taxing on my schedule. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I never really got to do anything super fun in school, except learning composition was a lot of fun. How good of a musician was I? I mean, I was probably like a middle of the road college sax sophomore, junior when I played. Like I wasn't amazing, definitely not amazing. But I was okay. I think that my theory background was real.
I think this might be a bit of a wake-up call for some people. This is also one of the main things that drove me away from music is realizing that even if you're winning these high school competitions, if you're getting into all-state, if you're getting into like county band or some of these more award-winning bands, you can, some of the bands that are more extracurricular that have like big rankings, I think it's important to realize how different the high school level is than the college level. I think high school is a lot easier to win competitions in than college. Most of the people winning those college competitions that are maybe nationwide or international are incredibly freaking good. Like they're so, like everybody who wins them is top of their all-state since freshman year. Like it's completely insane. The skill gap between being like some middle of the road above average kid in all-state and then going to college. Like once you get to college, you get down to like very mediocre. I mean, this video we watched, it's very good. I think it's incredibly good. I think this guy definitely, I mean, if he was in California, there's a lot of what ifs, right? But I think he'd definitely be qualified for sort of the all-state level. But the all-state level compared to the college level is very, not too hard to spread apart. Going from the top of your high school class to being like in the middle of the road college is a very common thing. And I think if I did major in music, I would be around the middle, maybe around the bottom, especially as a freshman.
I didn't have as much time to practice as I should have because I spent all of my extra time sleeping because of how brutal work was. But yeah, that's what we got.
Yeah, so a big takeaway I would take from that is just that majoring in music is a hard decision. I wouldn't make it lightly if you're thinking about it. Maybe you're a freshman, maybe you're a sophomore, even a junior. In your junior year summer, especially, that's the time to start thinking about this stuff. You know, there's a lot of things. I mean, this video, I've sort of said purely negative reasons. I remember there was one conductor who came from, I think it was Jerry Junkin. He was like the UT Austin conductor, and he's very good. Like, he's a music professor, right? You'd think that he encourages kids to major in music, but he actually talks about how he spends more time encouraging kids not to major in music than he does encouraging them. I think the general rationale is that you probably shouldn't major in music. It's hard to find logical reasons to, but I also think that's somewhat of a good thing. I think the people that do end up majoring in music are usually the people who are really, really good, who are really top of their all-state, are really banging out all these competitions. And so I certainly wouldn't flack anybody for giving it a shot. And also something to take away is that you can totally major in music and then realize maybe this major isn't for me, and then just totally go sideways, right? I don't think Destiny mentioned it in the video, but he actually dropped out of music school. I think in his junior year he couldn't finish out, and now he's one of the biggest political commentators online. I think, well, he probably makes an insane amount of money. He probably makes like like $50K a month, which is what most people make in a year, right? So there's certainly opportunity out there. Your life doesn't have to follow the exact path that you set out on. So even if you are majoring in music, it's not like you have to win the New York Philharmonic positions to be a successful person in life. I hope this video was somewhat interesting. His thoughts especially interesting, and I thought it was worth sharing. So thank you all. See you.